So
tell us about Crysis,
the review just went up today on that.
I hear you hated it.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Why'd you only give it an 8?
Oh,
Why'd you score it so low?
God. You know, today, before, when I was looking online before we came in here, I was seriously thinking to myself, and then Robert Ashley, who, is on the show sometimes, a.k.a. Bobito, Max Chill, was reminding me that he doesn't write reviews. And part for this sort of reason. It's like, it's not worth your time, But it's one of those things where I'm looking at it, and now and then, what did I say earlier to Ryan? Okay, Mr. Rogers at least knew that his audience was in diapers, right? So he would know. He would do what he did in that knowledge. But for me, now and then, it's like I want to do something different. And then it's like I find out that the audience is in diapers.
You just have to remember.
And I'm not saying everyone. This isn't like, again, like don't even let this be like everyone sucks, because then it would be me. But I'm talking about specific people. The kind who posted like the story at Voodoo Extreme or whatever, that the headline was, "One Up gets sloppy seconds," and then the sloppy seconds is hyperlinked to some other review that must have come out a few hours earlier or something. 8 out of 10. Why so low? I mean, fuck you, dude. Hey, whoever wrote that, seriously, fuck you.
Yeah.
You're a piece of shit. Because if you, I'm dead serious. You are.
I know you're serious. I agree with you.
You can eat a dick. Because here's why, and it makes me so upset. Because for me, when I put an 8 on a score, I'm very seriously saying this is a damn fine game, and I believe that you should play it. And part of the reason is, of course, everyone uses different scales. We talked about it before, so I won't try to retell that entire story. But in my mind, and I can only speak for myself, I want to use the entire scale. That means 1 through 10, and every single one of those is a viable option. Not this blurry area where 6 and 7 are the same, or 8 and 9 are the same, or 2 and 5 are more or less the same, or any kind of world where an 8 is low.
Yep.
Right. And the other part of this that is so frustrating to me is that, again, people see the score, the first thing they look at, the only thing they want to argue about, and it changes the way that they interpret every other bit of information in the review. Whereas we want to say, well, we can't have our way, apparently, especially online. I mean, I'm sure for GFW magazine readers, I love you. You guys clearly get it in the mail we get from you guys and stuff. But it's like, here's a review and here's a score to go with it as a little additional piece of think about it this way. If we had to put a score on it, here's the score. And so they conduct this sort of linguistic, sentence calculus or arithmetic, where they say the assumption is any game that's been hyped throughout the year to any, significant degree, of which Crysis is one, games like Oblivion, games like Gears of War, the games that we get all excited about and talk about, the assumption is that they should all get a 10. And that means then that any negative thing you say in your review must be must be where you can isolate where the points are missing. So say, for example, if it's an 8 that the game, you dock 2 points off it for something, and we can find these by finding the negative things. So if you then said 2 negative things in your entire review, that must mean that each of those is responsible for removing a single point from the score of 10 that it deserved.
I'm with that.
Now, and that's why you're an idiot.
You're saying that's not how it should be. Okay.
I mean, this is just completely
I missed
absurd.
The whole point.
I mean, it's just like this rotten, absolutely faulty thinking, and it doesn't work that way, right? I mean, it's not like every good thing you say. I mean, it doesn't even make sense no matter how you try to slice it. Right. So that's dead wrong. And some of the frustrating things that's led to is someone's like, I commented that, the dialogue and narrative, especially toward the end of the game when they figure more prominently in the story, are bad. But so people said, oh, he docked a point because the dialogue's bad. This piece of shit doesn't understand that a game doesn't have to have a story to be good. I was like, oh, my bad. I thought I was saying that the beginning of the game had fuck all for a story and was absolutely phenomenal.
Right.
And then when it gets to the point where it tries to shoehorn a story in and it screws up the gameplay, it starts to suck. Any other number of things. Then I shouldn't even read it. I should not read it because among the other comments that were rad, Ryan or some other person at 1UP decided to make, because I didn't write it, they decided to make my review or biography paint a pretty picture of me, and it lists all my favorite games as Naruto. So every game that I like it's got Naruto in the title.
But that's because you didn't turn your text in, so we had to write it for you.
And people are online, dude, this is the worst review since Neverwinter Nights 2. It has to be pulled. It's got to be pulled down.
What, because it says you like Naruto games?
Yeah, they're like, dude, this guy, he should not touch an FPS. He just likes Naruto games. And then, of course, everything else, he's, this and that and other things that aren't polite to say. And, I mean, it's just mind-blowing. I mean, I can't expect – that's our fault. You put a joke there. I don't know. That's why I don't think you guys should have done that.
No, but it's like, I disagree with you. If people couldn't read that from you and see that was a joke, then they're morons.
Right. You should not be worrying about these people.
And then other things that happen, it's like, that's the main thing. And 8, and you see all these people posting like, oh, I'll still play it. I'll still try it. And I'm like,
even though it got the measly 8.
Yeah. Seriously, oh my God. I wrote the 8th saying like, you should play this game. If you're even interested in a first-person shooter, and again, I said also in
the review was unequivocally positive. I read this review.
And then it's
unequivocally a positive
up the context
review.
So that the whole point with the review is, I used one of Shavat Yerli, CEO of Crysis, metaphors for his game to create a theme for the story. And then by doing that, what I wanted to do was establish how the game was working, establish, all the things that it's supposed to be and what it by and large is. And then when you have this framework, when you get to point, instead of saying the AI is great, but sometimes it's not or whatever, and then just getting here's the graphics, here's the audio, like that when you get to the part where things aren't necessarily impressive to me, it's now situated in this context of like, here's all the things that are going right and the ways that it's going right. And now it's like doubly upsetting when these things happen,
Right.
And here's basically the thing with the game. Some of the stuff in the beginning, the majority of the game, the first 3 quarters of the game is just incredible. And I've said that before in the 1-Up show. I've said that if you like FPSs, it's a no-brainer. Go and get it, provided you have the system to play it. And it'll make you look. I mean, I've mentioned how it's made me look at COD differently. Mm-hmm. It'll make you look at all the other shooters you play differently. You'll at least want to say, well, how did Crysis handle that or whatever, and they've shown you what option that there are more options out there for designers than a lot of people acknowledge, And then so because of it, and it establishes all this stuff, and it's as you're playing, you're becoming more and more comfortable with the way that the game works, and you're experimenting and you're having more fun. And then all of a sudden it gets to this point where, and it wasn't just that it becomes linear where it had been, systemic, procedural, wide open, where it just becomes scripted and narrow and all this stuff. That was a shock, which it was, but it became. It's not but it's also specifically that it's poor scripting. Mm-hmm. It's not like COD4 quality linear stuff. It's just like kind of lousy, like what I was talking about for the beginning of Area 51, And why it was so frustrating to me is because you could still see the potential. And then, here's some spoilers in this, but after you do just all these phenomenal things where you're fighting helicopters, you're hiding from them, they're falling through the trees, you're running and getting in a boat, crossing a lake, sniping someone, getting in a tank. Then, you have these situations where you're escorting someone. If he dies, you die. Then you get in a Jeep. You can't switch positions or anything. It's like you just have to go down this exact same path, shoot the guys that come out in the exact same spots. Again, Area 51, the old game in the bar that Ryan frequents. And I just threw that in it. And then you're looking at it, there's a flight section. And you have to fly, and you kill X number of enemies, and the invisible wall kind of vanishes, and you get to move forward. And you're looking at it, and you're like, the plane sucks, but I want to land. What if I land? I mean, everything still looks great down there. What if I just take a truck instead? A final battle on an aircraft carrier instead of standing there. Now, here's the spoiler thing, where the end of the game...
are you telling the end of the game?
Yeah, I think I should do it.
Oh, man.
Okay, maybe not. I'm going to have to do... But the thing is you're not going to want me to ever talk about it again, so it's like...
No, what do you mean? Sure you will talk about it again.
Okay.
We'll be talking about Crysis for weeks.
Because there's so much that goes wrong there at the end, in my opinion. And so it's not just that it violates the expectations, but everything that's happening, you can still see, well, what if they did it along the way that... So if they maintained the approach that they had established, it would still work.
So you feel like they broke the expectations that they set
They
up.
still could have told the story. They could have basically ramped up the game and made it better and better and better until the point where it ended, it would have been like, oh my God, when you put it down, I cannot wait for these guys to make another game. This is freaking brilliant. So instead, I feel I have that emotion at many points in the beginning of the game and the midpoint of the game, and at the end when it's done, because and I'm kind of shackled. I can't say specifically what, thanks to you. When it ends, I'm like, good God, that's like from what highs to what lows, you know, and it's the ending of anything is really important. You can't entirely dismiss it. So one another simile, and I'm so fond of using these, would be, you look at this perfect, just mind-boggling Olympic performance. This gymnast or something. Just blows you away. Then at the end, like, the motherfucker face plants on the dismount. And it's like, it doesn't matter how the other stuff is still good and everyone's going to talk about your performance, but they're also going to talk about the fact that you ate shit on the dismount, and you will always look at it as this big thing. You can't just break it up and say, dude, that was good until you broke your face. I mean, it was good and you broke your face. Right. But I mean, so I'm not supposed to talk about that, and again, some people clearly aren't going to react so strongly to this part of the game.
So is that one of the two things that brought it down
that's
to
one
an
of
8?
the two things, yeah. That's definitely the other thing would be...
we were kidding. We were kidding. That was a joke.
I really think, though, a lot of it was scaled back. I mean, I did not write in the way that, like, I'm going to review this game based on what I expect it to be. Right. But I just was also in a position, I mean, I had to think about that and make sure I wasn't doing that, because I also know a lot of things were cut from the game. There were, all these plans for frozen oceans and aliens that are shooting the ice out from beneath you so that you fall in, or you're using cover, they're freezing it and shattering it, leaving you exposed. None of these things are in the game. They just didn't make it in. These big giant hunters grabbing tanks and throwing them when you're in them, all this kind of stuff like that. They didn't do it. And there could be any number of reasons for it, but I think that if those things were there, if it was a matter of time, if it was a matter of assuming that more people had hardware that would meet the minimum system requirements to enable that sort of stuff, I mean, whatever it would be, I do think that it would have been cool to see that. And
well, let me ask you something to just sort of put you on the spot for just 1 minute.
Yeah.
You have been pretty close to this game, and you've previewed it before. You've talked to Shavat. There's a lot here that you've been up on this game.
Yeah, totally.
And so, what do you think that someone who came to this game like completely fresh might have reacted differently to? Maybe the ending at that point to them would have been overwhelmed by all the stuff that came before it enough to make them go like, oh my God, it's an 11. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, is it possible that your expectations were so high that it became a disappointment?
It's hard to say. Well, I really don't believe that it's because my expectations were so high, but I mean, expectations established in the course of playing the game for review. So again, like, some people just will not care. Some people are extremely happy with just about anything. I mean, you constantly, you'll see people arguing to death that, like, just pick any random game, is the best thing ever. And it was entirely without fault. But I think if people are critical, to some extent, I believe that this is going to be a thing that's repeated. I think you're going to see a lot of people talking about how, this is, I think I even said it in the review, I do believe that all conversations about the game will come to the point where they say, well, what about the end? How did you feel about it? And then maybe there'll be room for disagreement there, but a lot of people, just maybe more so than go the other direction, will say that, it was disappointing. And that's just based on if you knew nothing about the game, if you plugged it in, you're like, this is crazy. This is totally ramping up to something. And then it's kind of like, it just really comes out of nowhere. So much so that it really felt as though it were the work of two different design teams, or one team that was like really good with doing the systemic open stuff, and then really not so good at doing the other, the other thing, doing the scripted work. And I don't know. I think that over time, I think people are so reactionary right now, and it's just the usual. I mean, for whatever inexplicable reason, people think that they've been told all year that this game is going to be the greatest thing ever. And then somehow you get into this like fucked up mentality, this absolutely just like clinically insane mentality where you're like, why so low?
That's
crazy. For a game that you haven't played or you just started playing.
These people who are reacting are they haven't finished it.
There was one
or
dude,
even started it,
Or even started in many cases.
Right.
They're just
but the
reacting
assumption
to
that this thing was destined to get a 9 or a 10.
Right.
there was this
It's
dude who
unbelievable.
commented
Yeah.
in the same kind of comment area that, well, we've been told by previews even as recent as a month ago that this game was going to shatter expectations or whatever, and now you're telling me otherwise. What's wrong with you? And he was saying it in all seriousness.
Yeah, and there's other just as equally serious posts that said, well, website X gave it a 9.5, website Y gave it a 9. Why is yours so wrong? Why isn't yours the same?
That's just
Sure.
idiots
They're very
projecting
angry.
System wars mentality.
Why are you reading
onto
multiple reviews
publications.
then when you want them all to say the same?
Right. All they
fucking
want
thing?
is their
don't
opinion to be
understand.
validated.
This is why you
Right.
got to stop reading the internet.
I do
Exactly.
have to
You're
do it,
driving
and I think
yourself
again
crazy.
because it is
Why I gave
it
up
is
on it.
mainly kids because not so. I mean, who?
Well, kids, but
I mean,
and
who in
I'm
their
not
right
saying it's going to
minds-
happen in this case, but we do often hear from publishers or developers, whoever. And again, I'm not saying it's the case in this case yet, anyway. That we will get the call.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like at website blah gave it a 9, and this magazine gave it a 9. How come you did you're way lower than the Metacritic score?
Yeah,
Right.
Well, that's because we're actually a different publication.
right.
Guess what? But
Another point about the game, the thing with multiplayer, I didn't include a discussion of multiplayer with the review. Part of this is it's kind of a joint thing. It's like I wrote the review for our magazine, right? And then One Up takes it and puts it online. I noticed it also referred to a caption where I talk about the nanosuit powers and stuff like that, and that didn't appear there. But here's the deal. The beta has been publicly available for a while, and that had one level on it. And aside from that, EA, I mean, they did, everything they could. They said, like, here, we're going to have multiplayer sessions. At first, we were going to have one. Then it was like 2, and then they arranged for a third one. And these were, an hour and a half to 2 hour sessions on 3 different days. And the problem for me is that I just knew that every time the multiplayer was going to be discussed in a review, it was just going to be descriptive. And now I feel vindicated because I went and looked and I found nothing but descriptive.
sure.
Here's what Power Struggle is. And I'm like, well, that's what I did in the feature I did where we
Right,
talked
right,
about
right.
Power Struggle.
No one's actually evaluating yet because they can't.
Because they can't. And they don't
Right.
you have to play. It takes more than a few sessions with this. And so while I have all these hunches and things that I was reacting to when I was playing in these sessions, and one example would be that a few maps are designed to support, air combat with VTOLs and jets and stuff. And in order to do that with the map, you have to make it very big because they move so quickly and they turn so wide and stuff like that. So in the early phases of the game, and I talk about phases because unlike Battlefield where the vehicles are there when the map starts and everyone races for them and gets in them, creating the downside that people often kill each other to get them because they really want them, or they just sit there and wait instead of doing something productive.
Right.
So Crysis said, design logic said, let's find some way to stop people from doing this horse shit. It's counterproductive to the game, and what we're going to do then is make it so you buy your own vehicle, and then only you can use it until you've been in it once, and then it kind of unlocks so someone else can use it. You have to buy something, you have to get the prestige points in order to do it, and to get the prestige points, you have to play for a while. So at the beginning phases of these very large maps, I found that you're getting in a vehicle, like there are freebie Jeeps that are there. They have no guns on them or anything. And you're driving and driving and driving to one of the many distant capture points. And, they go by different names. They're, weapons factories and energy sources, prototype energy sources. It's just kind of like, okay, I'm driving. You get there. Maybe you get in one firefight. You kill one guy, but he had someone with him. And by the time you killed the first one, the second guy killed you. Spawn again, do it. You're kind of getting a little bit of stuff, but then you're like, all right, this time I'm going to get this rifle and a grenade so that when I run into 2 guys, I'm like more likely to win, And then it happens. It could happen. It could work. And so if it goes one way, then you'll get a little more experience and you're continuing to do this. And it's kind of, I didn't find it very fulfilling, And then if it went bad, it was really bad because it was like, then you only had enough to buy a pistol. So you're driving the same route again. You can mix it up, but you're just driving another distance. And then the worst case scenario, no one's there because people are just all over. You meet someone. It's a very sleepy pacing. And then finally, when it does ramp up, and the game could take, like one of the matches took like almost 2 hours. Then at the end, you've got jets and stuff, and you're able to get around, or if you have enough money. So I found that annoying, but it's like I don't want to just jump on that yet because I could play it for another week and say, oh, I was missing something. There's some other factors where we really do end up sort of congregating in one area, and the action does stay intense through all these phases. And now that I've been playing it for a long enough time, I do appreciate this solution, and I think it actually is maybe superior to the Battlefield scenario or whatever. But and I don't see anyone talking about anything like this. Like, I just see and I can't complain what they're talking about when I'm not talking about anything in mind. But it's like I just wanted to wait until until I felt I can give you an evaluation of this and not just a description. And then when you just have a description there, and then you have your score, then you have the 10 that these guys want so bad. Then you're like, oh, that's a description of a 10 multiplayer game right there.
Well, Sean, we may not get the Crysis 2 exclusive scoop now, thanks to you.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope they're. I think Chavad and them are good people. I mean, hopefully nothing happens like that. But we know that there are circumstances in this business where you say a negative thing about something, sometimes
you're out
on a message board.
Yep.
One negative thing in a sea of positive things,
and you are out.
They fucking hate you.
Yep. You get the angry call from the CEO of the company to somebody over here at Ziff Davis, and then the next thing you know, everybody's in trouble.
It's so not worth it. I could see for so many people, it's like, just give these games the 9s and 10s and make everyone happy. Make the publishers happy.
Yep.
Make the kids online
Why
happy.
don't we do that? Why do we have to hate, Sean?
It would be so much easier to do that.
All right, that's my new mandate, guys.
9s and 10s only?
9s and 10s.
For everything.
Well, actually, if they're smaller publishers that don't advertise with us, that's okay. If they're big ones that want to give us money, 9s and 10s.
So 5s for everyone else. Otherwise,
5s
they're using a 9 to 10 scale.
Right.
I'm good with that.
5s for everything unless they advertise with us. And then depending on, like, if it's like a half-page ad, they get a 6.
It's not even that. It's just straight. That's too. It's just a 9 or a 10. Just
Oh,
do
you're
that
right.
and
Just
you're
9s
safe.
and 10s.
Yeah, because the 9
Why
will
piss anyone
attract
off?
them to advertise.
Oh, you're right. These guys love games. And if we give them our game to review, they're going to love it. And we may sell more. You're right. Why didn't I think of this before? 9s and 10s.
brilliant.
Next issue.
Everything.
Look for it in games.
It's sad though, because I mean, to be serious, you're like, hey, I'm going to be fair to myself, and I'm going to be honest, And like I said, both COD and Crysis are awesome ass games. I love them. They're both great.
Yep.
But I mean, they got some issues with them,
Yep.
and they're significant to me. I mean, neither is the best game I've ever played in my life.
Ryan and I were in line for lunch wondering, like, do other entertainment industries that, review things have this problem?
I bet they do.
Yeah, I wonder.
I know the music industry does. From people I've talked to that work work in video music magazines.
with records,
with record reviews and stuff. Yeah,
Really?
We're the same sort of
How
thing.
come the
where
new
they'll-
Britney only got 2 out of 10? That kind of thing.
So that means you can't interview.
Entertainment
I mean,
Weekly gave us a 4.
Do
You
you
won't be able
think
to
a
interview the
studio
people in there.
publicist calls up Roger Ebert and goes like, "Why do you only give this movie 2 stars?"
He gives thumbs.
Or what, doesn't
gives
he get
stars
stars
on
on his
his-
website?
Oh,
though?
you're
Yeah,
right.
he
He
gives
does.
stars, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, well, they probably do, right? And that's why they all love Harry Knowles.
oh
Right?
god,
Because he
yeah,
loves
okay.
everything.
There's
right.
that's a good point.
That's another 10. Here you go, Harry. Here's your free bowl of chili.
Thank you. I love that movie.
I prefer Bush's baked beans.
Anything you say, Mr. Knowles. Thank you for loving King Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep playing now that it's out and there are other people to play in a natural environment and that aren't all EA testers who've been playing the game in various iterations for the past 6 months and just rip you up and see what I think about it, And hopefully I'll have something worthwhile to say. So
If you like one more thing, then we can give it a 9.
we definitely
Yeah,
could.
you got to
We can go back up a point.
That was part of the thing. That was kind of controversial is that the review someone put on there on the bottom, I'm passing the buck again, but like that it will not change the score. And it's like, that's kind of hard. It was because it's like, I mean, we do have to put out the score. And it's like, my sense, this is my gut. Like from all the time I played, this is the score the game gets with it.
Right.
But I mean, maybe it'll have to break precedent if like I play this thing for 40 hours straight and then Ryan's looking at me like, dude, why are you saying this? I'm just saying hypothetically, I mean,
Scores suck.
I hate numbers.
I wasn't
Yeah.
the one who mandated that note.
right.
I wish we could go back to that one mini revolution we had where we took the scores off everything.
I just
was
sick of
great.
doing reviews, man. I need just to do something else.
Oh, no, you're doing like 3 next issue.
It's just not worth it. It's like,
Can we just start like assigning random pictures of scores? Like, this is a carrot.
Hey,
This
you know
is
what? No,
That's a great idea.
This is a buttered
Wait, they gave us a carrot. Is that good?
I want to
Well,
know.
it's a
I would
healthy
like
vegetable,
to talk
maybe.
about review games on podcasts with no scores. Just say everything you want. Don't have to worry about.
Hey,
all
that may be in our future.
But then we don't have to give it a number?
We just
Or
talk
We
about
may very
vegetables.
well have a reviews
Or-
podcast.
I really like Sean's
Should be
idea.
good.
A random object in the world. And we never explain the system.
Hey, but
And
you're
it's not
you
just
know,
fruits and vegetables. It's like everything.
You and I are now the only ones who have work systems that are capable
game
of
got a
playing
chicken.
games.
this
Yeah,
is true.
Yeah,
Oh.
we're the only ones who can review games now.
Excellent. Well, you guys do that.
Well,
and
you
Sean
got-
and I
you
will
take the
fuck
brunt of
off
it.
all day.
That's right.
I'll have to pass mine over. I'm done with reviews after this.
No, you're not.
I hate it.
Don't let him get you down, man.
Why so low?
Fight the good fight.
Sloppy
Why
seconds.
so low?
Why so low?
Why so low, Sean?
Yeah,
That's
dude.
your new motto.
If I see that guy, I have to find his name. If you ever see me at an event, come introduce yourself, dude.
Sean, why so low, Elliot?
Why so low, man?
Hellgate London is that little dog figure in Monopoly.
Yeah.
That's what that is. That's what I score it.
You didn't give it the race car? That's fucked up. All the other magazines gave it a race car. And that one website gave it the banker. Man, you suck. Little dog.